Minister, thank you for agreeing to talk to RWM, however indirectly. Can we start off, please, by finding out what you think are the key observations and the successes and challenges that the UK resource community faces?
Well, I think the first thing is that it's an unbelievably exciting industry. I'm not sure the public understands how exciting it is. More than 100,000 people employed in it. Huge transformation. I mean, we've managed to reduce landfill waste by 60% since 2001. It was something that I wouldn't even have imagined when I was growing up. We're the European leader in dealing with food waste. We've just managed to reduce again by 80% the amount of waste going out of supermarkets that isn't making it to charities and other users. So in every way, I'm really proud of the industry. It's an industry that's seen, I think, maybe by some of the public 20, 30 years ago, it's quite an old-fashioned industry, but is now one of the most exciting, environmentally progressive industries in the country.
And the water industry is also a challenging sector as a resource that we must conserve.
Well, water is, of course, the stuff of life, without being too naff about it, and everything happens through our rivers. It's where our fish swim, it's where our wildlife is located, it's the water we drink, it's the water we use to irrigate, it's the water we use in industry, it's the water we use in power generation. So one of the fundamental challenges, as climate change happens, as water levels drop, is making sure that that water is properly allocated between all those different users in a fair way and in a way that people can plan.
And you're working currently on a policy around abstraction reform.
Exactly.
Can we expect movement on that?
You can absolutely expect movement on that. And the point about abstraction reform, and this is why we've been very careful in the way we've done it, is to make sure that all those different factors are considered, to make sure that it's a reform that works for farmers, it works for industry, but also it works for wildlife, and it works for the people who enjoy those rivers as something to look at for leisure or to canoe or to fish as part of our landscape, as well as something that keeps us fed and something that keeps our lights on.
As you get your feet under the table, how do you think you personally and the department can help the wider resource management sector?
The first thing I think we need to do, and I think this is true of government in general, we should always be better at listening. The people who really know what's going on the ground are the industry itself, not me. The second thing I think that we should be doing, and this relates to listening, is getting rid of red tape. This is why I've actually encouraged a team to be here at the conference today, and I'd really encourage anyone listening to this to reach out to our team. They're our red tape team, and they're there exactly in order to meet with industry and have ideas on how we can get rid of bureaucratic hurdles, which everybody running a business must be encountering all the time. There have got to be 100 ideas in this room for what we could do to try to make businesses work better, both in the interests of business and in the interests of the consumer. And finally, tackling waste crime, because really we are about supporting the great legitimate waste industries of Britain. But those industries can only thrive if we cut down on the people who are breaking the rules, who are undercutting them by doing things which are offensive to the environment and which are frankly illegal. So we have also put more money into waste crime prevention.
It's a really difficult balance, though, because it's a very regulated industry. Rules and regulations are what the industry is based on. There's a danger, isn't there, that you're going to actually throw them out with the bathwater?
You're absolutely right. The industry is based on rules, it's based on environmental regulations, and that's how the industry, of course, to some extent makes its money. It's not all voluntary. A lot of this is legislated by government. So the key is going to be to get that balance right, making sure that we have clear rules, simple rules, straightforward rules, that they're rules that are standardised. I mean, I'd really like to see, for example, much more standardisation between the different councils in this country. Maybe over 100 different ways in which recycling is done in the country. If we could reduce that to just 5 or 6, it would make a huge difference for businesses, huge difference for British recycling. But that's all about making sure that there are, of course, as you say, rules, but that those rules are fairly and simply implemented.
I presume you've come to this view around harmonisation, if you like, around local authority collections by listening both to the people and to the industry. Can we be seeing something on that shortly then?
That's something where we need to work very carefully, because those local authorities are going to have to come to this basically on a voluntary basis. Some of those people have signed out 15, 20-year contracts. So it's going to need a lot of imagination. It's going to involve business, local authorities, and of course us working very carefully together. But I believe it can be done, because I believe actually having a standardised waste collection system could actually be cheaper for these local authorities and better for the consumer. And we don't need to feel that keeping 100 is in anyone's interests at all.
And you don't see that runs across a localism agenda, for example, where they can choose?
You're absolutely right. It's another challenge. We do believe in localism, we do believe in choice, so this is going to be about persuasion rather than me with a 300-mile screwdriver telling people what to do from London.
We've got another big challenge coming up with the circular economy package, which, as we talk, is not due for a few months. What are you expecting from that, and how do you think that the UK will respond when it's clear that some of the more directive policies that one might anticipate from Brussels would run counter to your government's philosophy?
The key to any environmental policy, doesn't matter whether it's circular economy or doing something with wildlife, is you have to bring people with you. If you set up an environmental policy which is so idealistic and so ambitious that you simply alienate business, alienate citizens, in the end it's unsustainable and it will collapse. So we really believe in the circular economy. We want an ambitious circular economy package, but it's got to be realistic, it's got to be affordable. It's got to be something which we move into in an ambitious way, but gradually. Something where people actually know where we're going. So the entire negotiation that we're conducting in Brussels is about absolutely accepting the philosophy of it, accepting the spirit of it, but making sure the targets we set are actually achievable.
Apart from harmonisation, which you've talked about, how can we, certainly in England, address the flatlined recycling rate?
Again, that's going to be, I believe, above all about getting these local authorities to work more closely together. I think the single biggest thing we could do is to try to encourage us to get towards, instead of having 100 different systems, 6 different systems. And as I say again, this is about persuasion, this is not about me mandating. But I think that would make a huge difference because it would allow everyone in the waste industry to be able to offer much more standardised packages at a much bigger scale. It would make it much simpler for the public to know what they were doing with their waste and get that relationship between the sorting done by the public, the sorting done by the industry, and the recycling we can get at the end.
We've talked about household collections. Massive proportion is the retail sector, commercial, packaging and everything else. That's a very different set of rules and regulations, a different economy, if you like. What part can you play in really getting more businesses to sign up to the sort of things that we're seeing from Unilever and the like?
Well, we've done 2 main things in government which we're quite proud of. One of them is an initiative called the Courtauld Initiative, which has happened around food waste, where we've been very excited to get all the major retailers really involved and committing. Great stuff happening recently. We've had Tesco's doing a study, for example, on bananas. We've had studies with the co-ops on potatoes, around food waste. We've had great trialling of new technologies and apps to make sure that charities can collect waste directly from supermarkets. But then we also have RAP and the whole initiative around that, which is about thinking with industry about finding clear, simple ways of reporting and clear, simple ways of improving because, and this is the core of the whole circular economy, no business actually wishes to be stuck with waste. They also are interested in prevention. They also are interested in recycling. They're also interested in getting the maximum value out of the product. And that's good for the environment, but it's also good for the recycling industry.
And yet when we had a roadmap for the dairy industry, as soon as the price of oil went the wrong way, that fell apart. So that shows, surely, that just getting people to sign up for something doesn't guarantee it.
You're absolutely right. We live in a complicated world. There are lots of different things going on. There are a lot of externalities, to use the horrible jargon phrase, which we've got to take into account. But I think the UK really is in a unique place. In certain sectors in waste and recycling, we are actually leading the world. We should be really proud of ourselves. And I think with this industrial base, with this number of people working, with this kind of drive from government, with this practical approach we're taking, I really believe the UK can be a leader for the world.
Some of the people I've talked to have said that you've heard what's been going on in Scotland and Wales with some of the initiatives and been very impressed with that. He was quite animated taking notes when they've been telling you. Do you feel that Wales and Scotland can be an exemplar for the rest of the UK?
Yes, I do. I'm actually, frankly, I'm a Scot and I'm a unionist. I believe in the United Kingdom. But one of the things that devolution has given us is an opportunity to learn from each other. I think Zero Waste Scotland has been doing some really interesting things in anaerobic digestion and creating compost. Wales has done some great stuff on meeting recycling targets, and I think we can always learn from each other.
Much more directed from the centre, though, than you would get in England.
That is true. And there are also smaller countries than England. So there may be a limit to the ways in which we can learn, but I'm certainly excited and I certainly want to learn from them and indeed anybody else that's doing well. If there's anybody at the conference who has found, maybe people with international experience, that Holland or Germany or France is doing something we should be learning from, I'd like to learn from that too. I mean, the UK is only going to be the best if we actually concentrate on what other people are doing.
This is going to be a difficult year ahead financially and economically as the Chancellor looks to save money. How can you at DEFRA, with an unprotected budget, continue to deliver in this way with far fewer people, for example?
Well, there are savings that need to happen. We haven't gone through the spending review yet, so we don't have the exact answers for that. But I'm pretty confident in this sector, which is waste and water. We have the right people, we have the right resources, and we'll continue to deliver to those targets.
Well, thank you for talking and giving your time to RWM. What would be your final message to the delegates?
Final message is challenge us. I mean, take on the challenge. I'd like to see the United Kingdom be the world's leader in this field, in waste and recycling. And we're only going to make it with the ideas that come from the sector. So please reach out to the officials who are here at the conference on the Red Tape Challenge. But more than that, don't hesitate to write to me. Don't hesitate to challenge us if you think there are better ways of doing things.
Thank you, Minister, for giving your time to RWM.
Thank you.